going on, guys? It's Austin with Hot Rod Heaven. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about this beautiful 1963 Chevy 2 Nova. So in 1963, these cars were only equipped with inline 4 and inline 6s coming from the factory. They didn't come with V8s until the following year. Obviously, this is a little bit different and there's some more horsepower, but we're gonna talk about this later. Builds like this show that you don't need to spend a fortune to have these classics still on the road today. Let's go ahead and introduce you to Tom so we can dive into the unique features and the story about this car. All right, Tom, well, thank you so much for doing this with me, man.
Thanks.
Let's talk about the story of how you got the car and why you kind of wanted to do the 63 Nova here.
I had a 67 Scout that I had forever, had a Grand National drivetrain in, and it was ugly. People loved it. It was a good time, a lot of fun, but it wasn't beautiful. And I wanted something that was a little more show-worthy. So when I got this car, I bought it from an older gentleman out in the middle of Florida. Pretty much looked like a four-wheel drive truck, had some rally wheels with some sweet 15s on it, big balloon tires. It didn't have the look or the stance that it has now. So my first intention was to get it looking like something I would drive.
Yeah, for sure. Did it take you a long time to find this particular car? Like, what was the process behind that?
So long story short, I went everywhere from all around Florida, Georgia, all the way up to Tennessee. My criteria was trying to find something completely rust-free, but that was practically impossible. And every person you talked to said their car was rust-free, and then when you get there, it's not rust-free.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was the truth with this car as well, rust-free, because I knew it was going to take a minute to get to the final build, and I wanted to be able to drive it in the meantime to shows and stuff like that, and still have it be presentable. So I found this car, get there, it's got a few small little rust bubbles, but they're under the paint. I could tell it was an older restoration.
And I remember you kind of telling me off camera when you saw it, you pretty much...
I knew that was it,
Yeah.
So basically he lived on a farm and I had to wait for him to let me in the fence. So I saw it from the road. It was a long dirt driveway up to a concrete pad with the garage, and I could see it from there. I told my son who was with me, I said, that's the one. That one's coming home with me.
And it's cool that you were able to get this car with your son too, which is
He's into
pretty
cars.
Special.
Yeah, he likes JDM cars, but he's into cars as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Cosmetically, it was the way it sits, other than suspension and stuff like that. And he'd done a lot of mechanical work to it, but it was all in need of fixing or repair. The V8 was already in here, and when I spoke to him about it, it was a crate motor, and he had got it back when COVID was first hitting, and he said it was the last non-LS crate motor that he could find.
Wow.
So it's just a basic 300 horsepower Chevy 350, 4-bolt main, nothing fancy. Mechanically, we had a lot of wiring issues that had to be resolved. The air conditioning was on it, but it didn't work correctly. Had a Holly Sniper fuel injection, but it didn't run very well, and the car would overheat and not shift correctly. I spent a ton of money trying to fix the cooling system. Started out with a new radiator. That didn't fix the problem. This is a multi-pass radiator, so I thought that fixed the issue. Switched it to a SPAL fan, which is one of the higher end fans that moves a lot more air. Still did not fix the issue. The only thing that fixed the issue were these little panels right here. So I spent probably $700-800 chasing an issue that was resolved by these $100 panels. Apparently the hot air was traveling over at idle, over the core support, and then right back in. The springs and weights inside the transmission ended up being incorrect. This transmission is not meant for this car. It's a huge pain to get to the place where you can replace those springs and weights. Came up with another solution. So we got 350 fuel injection, 700 R4, and then from the rear we've got the old original 6-cylinder rear axle still hanging on by a thread back there. Yeah, it's wide open. Happy about that, because if it did have any traction of significance, the sheet metal would probably tear by the quarter window back there.
And that's what I think is really cool. It's like, you don't have to put a lot of money into these, and I think a lot of people, they see these old hot rods and they're like, oh my gosh, it's gonna cost me a fortune. I think a lot of people feel like they have to start from scratch or build it from the ground up. It's like, no, it can be as simple as getting something and really making it a fun cruiser.
Absolutely.
That you can enjoy with your family, your wife, and take it to shows or whatever, you know? So that's why I appreciate builds like this, because you don't have to go over the top.
Wheels are always the toughest decision. So my birthday had come up. It was about 11 o'clock at night that night, and my son comes to me. He's like, Dad, these are the wheels. He had an ad on Facebook. He goes, we need these wheels for that car. I was like, yeah. He goes, I'm telling you, those are the right wheels.
Yeah.
So we reach out to the guy, just figure we'll take a chance, see what happens. It's 11 o'clock at night. He literally, the guy says, sure. You know, made him an offer, went and got them, showed up at his house right before midnight, bought the wheels. So the irony is the wheels around this car are not the wheels we bought that night. The wheels that we bought that night were for a CTS-V, and so they were skinny in the front, wide in the back, and they were front wheel drive offset.
Gotcha.
on the face of the wheel. And so in the end, I love the look on the car, but we ended up selling those wheels and buying these wheels instead. These replacement wheels that are the same style ended up being 18x7s all the way around. Now, considering I already had the 6-cylinder rear end, I wasn't terribly concerned about traction. I really just wanted looks at this point. So we have 195 30s up front, 205 35s in the rear.
Yeah, those tires are pretty thin, man. I'd be scared to curve them things for sure.
Every time I hit a bump, I'm like,
Yeah.
between having this much suspension travel and that much tire.
Yeah. It's sketchy, but hey, it looks good though, dude.
But you know, like I said, I've had no issues and I've hit some decent potholes,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
What about the suspension? Because the stance on this thing is awesome. I think that paired with the wheels
Yep.
is what really captures attention. Like when I saw it, I was like, whew, I love it.
You won't believe how inexpensive this suspension is. My son, again, he's into lowriders, JDM style cars, and so again, for another holiday, he's like, we got to get that thing on the ground. So we started Googling how to bring the car down, and because it's a very simple coil suspension in the front and leaf springs in the rear, literally $150 coils in the front, dropped it 2 inches. In the rear, I think we bought 2.5 or 3 inch blocks. I think we spent $150 here and $50 there to get the stance it's on the car.
It's crazy
Doesn't
how
take much.
much a difference wheels and lowering a car
Yep.
will do. It almost gives it like a more modern resto mod look.
I don't want to spend a ton of money on stuff, especially when I haven't figured out what the final plan is just
Yeah.
yet. But I like to go to, take the kids out, throw them in the back, we go to the beach, go to a car show or get ice cream or something, or go out to dinner. And so
Exactly.
I can still do that in the meantime while prepping for the big build.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people, they think that the car just needs to sit there and it's not usable until you figure out what you're going to do with it. Like, no, enjoy the car, drive it while you can,
Yep.
while you're trying to figure out your next plan.
Yep.
Let's hop into the interior of the car. Let's start off with the seats. Are these the original seats that came with the car, or?
These are the ones that came with the car.
Okay.
I'm not sure if these are original to the car, but the pattern is correct. And
Gotcha.
so this was the Nova interior. Since this was a Chevy 2, the Nova was an option package, and part of that package was the interior that you see here. So those are the original gauges. Now the previous owner took a tack out of a Chevelle and removed the clock that was in there.
Oh, that's...
And then wired in that tack. And so that tack is an old 60s Chevelle style tack in the back where the clock used to be. And it is completely functional.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. I don't use it for much of anything, but it's there and it worked.
What about the shifter? I know a lot of people probably ask you about that.
That's the number one question about the car. What's that shifter? How does that thing work? So if you remember earlier, I told you transmission didn't shift quite right at the right RPM. So because I didn't want to pull the transmission until I started to do the next version of the car, I decided to go ahead and order one of these shifters. Now I love Hurst lightning rod shifters, but they're not great shifters. This one's made by a company in California, I believe, or at least out west, called Kilduff. And it's a Hurst lightning rod style shifter that actually works. That shifter allows me, if I'm just driving, to just leave it alone, pull the red lever down and to drive. But if I want to race, I need those RPMs to go a little higher than it does right now with the springs and weights that are in there. Right now it was shifted about 4,000 RPM. Daily driving, you never notice it. But if you're racing, it's going to short shift. So if I want to race, I pull the red lever back all the way down, all the chrome levers flop forward, and then you can pull, pull, pull.
Yeah.
And I've installed the shift light that it lets me know around 5,700 RPMs that it's time to pull to the next gear. There's not one car show that goes by people don't ask me about that wild crazy shifter that's in there.
We talked about you having AC. Is this vintage air or?
So this is a vintage air AC system. It does appear to be a little bit cobbled together. It's mostly vintage air. There's a few little parts under the hood that don't appear to be vintage air, but everything else lines up with the stuff that's in our catalog.
We're in Florida. It's humid. It's hot here, especially during the summer.
Yep.
I don't care how it looks as
As
long
long
as
as
you
it
got
works.
some AC in there,
Yeah.
dude. That's all that matters.
Gotta have
man.
AC. AC is not an option down here in Florida.
Yeah, for real. It's like it's a mandatory thing, dude.
Everything works as it should. I did add tilt steering column and a better steering wheel.
What is the steering wheel that's on there right now then?
So that is an aftermarket steering wheel from Eddy Motorsports. So I spent a lot of time trying to find something that wasn't too big, wasn't too small, that had a good look for the car. That's what I ended up with was this one.
Well, cool, man. I think that kind of wraps up the interior. I say we get a camera in the car and go for a cruise.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
All right, buddy.
Before we hop in the ride, we actually do have some merch available. So if you want to support the channel, you can go down in the links below. We have these shirts here, the vintage Hot Rod Heaven shirts. I actually screen print these here at the house. And then we have the OG Hot Rod Heaven shirts. So if you want to get those, help support the channel, it's all linked down below. Now let's get back into the video. super comfortable though. This
It's
seat
very
is,
comfortable.
This seat
I
is
love
awesome.
it, man. It's a cruiser.
Yeah.
It really is a cruiser, man.
This is so cool. I just love how seamless everything is. All the red just,
So
it looks good, man.
eventually, I'd like the interior to be more of a bronze and tan, like a saddle color.
Okay.
Because I have two plans. Originally, I wanted to put a supercharger in this thing. I think I told you.
Yeah.
But then I got that Ferrari for my birthday, and now I want to put a Ferrari motor in something. I can't figure out what I want to stick it in.
Yeah.
This might be a fun car to have a Ferrari motor in.
That would be pretty crazy.
It would be pretty
Definitely
crazy.
unique.
Problem is, I don't want to destroy this car to put a Ferrari motor in it. You know, it's something that I would love, but I don't know that anyone else would appreciate it.
I mean, also though, you gotta remember, you're building the car for you, not for other people. And
True.
I think that's where a lot of hate comes from that. It's like, hey man, this isn't
my car.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? When you get a car, you can do whatever you want
That's
to.
exactly
you
right.
know?
And for
Like,
the right price, this one could be yours and you do what you want with it.
And you can change it.
It's funny how many people think this car is a convertible because of the white roof.
Oh yeah, true.
I've had so many people come up to me at car shows and go, man, this is the best convertible in here. I'm like,
You're like, yeah, that's not a convertible. That's awesome, dude.
yeah. Again, it's not gonna beat any modern
Hey,
Corvette.
it's still
but
fun though,
it's
man.
fun, man.
A
That's
little
the thing.
tire screech.
Just a
you gotta
little.
love it, man.
Yeah. That's why I like having that thing in there too. Where
Oh
you
yeah,
can see all
you
the
got the
stats.
highlights, yep.
Yeah, I don't really look at it much unless I'm playing with it, but
And it's funny too, the little 1963 cup holder in
Yeah.
here. That's hilarious,
yeah,
man.
not much of a cup holder. Probably holds about 8 milliliters of liquid.
That's what I love, man. You ain't getting that in a Tesla.
Nope.
Just people honking and waving.
No, in a
This-
Tesla you get rolled coal.
Yeah, exactly. This is so cool, and it drives freaking.
Sounds like,
For
like a
not
Cadillac,
putting
man.
anything crazy suspension wise,
No,
and
it's-
you didn't change the chassis or anything.
No,
it
it's
drives
leaf spring with the
super
horrible. It has the horrible suspension.
See, that's all you need, man. You gotta get a little.
Just
giddy
a
up
little,
and go
just to get out of the way
fast,
of
and then you're good. And then
people
you can
like
keep
that.
cruising. All right, guys. So that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Me and Tom are gonna cruise for a little bit longer. Hope you liked the video. Enjoyed the story on this thing. Remember, you don't need to break the bank to have one of these cars. Just get out there and do something cool, man. We gotta keep these things alive. So, again, thanks for watching, Tom. Thank you so much for
Yes,
doing
sir.
this.
Thanks for doing it.
And we're gonna see you next time. Hey, Tom, hit that thing for me.
All right.